Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome, everyone, to a brand new explainer. Today, we're looking at a story that's honestly as heartwarming as it is, well, absolutely exhausting. Picture this, all right? It's the early 2000s in the Basque Country of Spain. There's this beautiful, quaint little village named Zegama, but they're facing a really serious problem: rural depopulation. People are packing up, they're leaving, the town is getting quieter, and the locals are just desperate to keep their tight-knit community alive. So what do? They decide to throw a party, specifically a massive picnic up in the stunning mountains surrounding their village, just to bring everyone back together. Sounds lovely, right? A peaceful stroll, some sandwiches, maybe enjoying a nice view. But as we're going to see, that sweet, simple idea transformed into something completely unimaginable.
Because, you guys, it was the ultimate bait and switch. The organizers started out by sending picnic invitations to all the former residents of Zegama who had moved away. The whole idea was, if we can just get everyone back for a picnic, maybe we can remind them of the beauty of their home. But as the idea started gaining momentum, this local guy named Alberto Ayerbe had a spark of wild inspiration. He thought, well, if a picnic works, why not organize a mountain marathon? And he didn't just casually suggest it. He actually sat down with a piece of paper and hand drew this massive, sweeping mountain route on a 1 to 25,000 scale map. He literally walked up to the organizers and told them, I already have the route. The picnic? Yeah, that was just the beginning.
And this brings us to the brutal reality: 2,736.
Now, that is not the number of sandwiches they made for this picnic. That is the staggering 2,736 meters of vertical elevation gain that runners actually have to conquer. Suddenly, we are a long, long way from a leisurely village gathering. What Alberto pitched on paper evolved into this lung-busting, leg-crushing ascent that has terrified and completely lured in the best athletes on the planet.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer, unforgiving brutality of the course Alberto designed. We're talking about a full 42-kilometer marathon distance stretching over the Arats and Aizkorri massifs, hitting 4 of the highest peaks in the entire Basque Country. But the absolute defining feature, the absolute monster of this race, is the Sancti Spiritu climb. It's a 180-meter ascent at a punishing 30% average incline. And here's the kicker: running poles are strictly forbidden. No poles. You have to push through notorious Atlantic mud and dense beech forests, relying solely on your own legs. The challenge is so legendary now that over 11,000 people apply in a lottery every single year. But the organizers keep it incredibly exclusive. Only 500 runners actually get a bib.
So, how fast did this thing grow? The timeline is honestly astonishing. In 2002, we have the very first edition. It was won by Spain's Juan Martín Tolosa in just over 4 hours and 14 minutes. Well, it didn't take long for the world to notice. By 2004, Zegala entered the World Cup circuit, and suddenly these global elites started showing up. Then, 2007 changed absolutely everything, when a 19-year-old kid debuts and wins, kicking off a literal dynasty. Fast forward to 2022, and that same kid sets an unbelievable course record, fundamentally shifting what we thought was humanly possible on this mountain. And that brings us to 2026, the historic 25th anniversary edition selected to open the prestigious Golden Trail World Series.
Now, this rapid growth ushered in an era of absolute dominance. You simply cannot talk about Zegama without talking about that 19-year-old kid from our timeline. His name? Kilian Jornet. No single athlete is more deeply associated with this mountain than him. Out of 13 appearances, Kilian has won 11 times. Just let that sink in for a second. Up until the 2026 race, he had won nearly half of all the editions ever held. He is, without a doubt, the undisputed king of the Basque Mob.
But it's not just his physical dominance that links him to the race, right? It's his deep understanding of its soul. Kilian perfectly captured the magnetic, electrifying atmosphere of the mountain with a simple 3-word phrase: Zegama is Zegama. It's so perfect, in fact, that the race organizers actually adopted it as their official slogan. It really speaks to the idea that this isn't just a race anymore. It's a full-blown cultural phenomenon.
And this brilliantly illustrates how that simple phrase holds a much deeper meaning. Kilian once explained that, sure, other trails might be more technical or scenic, but nothing, absolutely nothing, matches the atmosphere of Zegama. Imagine thousands of Basque fans lining the trails, specifically at that brutal Sancti Spiritu climb we mentioned, standing 10 rows deep on either side of a narrow, muddy path, screaming at the top of their lungs.
But Kilian warns that this exact energy is a classic trap. The crowd roars so loud and your adrenaline spikes so high that runners end up pushing way too hard, way too early on that 30% incline, completely blowing up their race strategy.
The visual proof of his reign is just staggering to look at. Let's go back to that inaugural 2002 race. The winning time was 4 hours, 14 minutes, and 23 seconds. When Kilian first won in 2007, he immediately dropped it under 4 hours. Then look at that stretch from 2010 to 2014, 5 consecutive victories. But the most incredible leap here is definitely 2022. By setting the record at 3 hours, 36 minutes, and 40 seconds, Kilian effectively chopped nearly 40 minutes off the original winning time from the race's origin. It's literally an evolution of human endurance playing out right before our eyes.
All of this incredible history culminated on May 17, 2026, marking the monumental 25th anniversary of the race. The organizers expected a celebration, naturally, but what actually happened was spectacular. Over 25,000 spectators lined the rainy, muddy trails to watch the largest international elite contingent in the race's history. And in a really beautiful nod to the local community that started it all, the organizers created the Jamaica tribute. Jamaica is a Basque word meaning 11, but it signifies many. They distributed 25 extra bibs specifically to honor the loyal fans and volunteers who made it all possible.
And wow, did the 2026 edition deliver absolute fireworks. Sweden's Tove Alexandersson, who is a multi-sport world champion, decided to focus on trail running, and she put on an absolute masterclass. I mean, she led from the very start all the way to the finish line and didn't just break the course record, she absolutely pulverized it. She crossed the line in 4 hours, 8 minutes, and 9 seconds, shaving more than 8 minutes off the previous record set back in 2022. And get this, her margin of victory over second place, Spain's Malin Osa, was nearly 16 minutes. Over on the men's side, history of a totally different kind was made. Morocco's El Hussein El Azawi defended his title, becoming only the second man in the entire 25-year history of Zegama to win the race more than once. And it was an absolute nail-biter. He had to battle fiercely, eventually pulling away on the highly technical final descent to beat Italy's Daniel Pottis by just 20 seconds. It was thrilling, edge-of-your-seat racing at its absolute best.
But amidst all the shattered records and the fierce competition, the true emotional core of the 2026 event was the highly anticipated return of the king himself, Kilian Jornet. Hadn't raced Zegama the previous year, but the pull of the mountain, and of course the 25th anniversary, was just too strong. He simply stated, for the 25th edition, it was impossible not to return.
In his announcement, Kilian's genuine affection for the community was so clear. He wrote, "A special race in a special year. This year marks 25 years of Zegama-Aizkorri, a quarter of a century of one of the most iconic mountain races in the world. 42 kilometers, 2,736 meters of elevation gain, technical terrain, and an atmosphere unlike anywhere else on the planet. For the 25th edition, it was impossible not to return. He truly understands the gravity of what this former village picnic has become."
So, the crucial point is how this return actually played out. The expectation from the entire world was classic Kilian, right? He would charge to the front of the pack and contend for his 12th victory. And he actually started exactly like that, running right up with the leaders in the early climbs. But the reality of mountain racing is super unforgiving. A muscle issue in his leg flared up during the second half of the race, severely slowing him down. He ultimately crossed the finish line in 43rd place. But here is where the magic of Zegama really shines. The crowd didn't care at all about his placement. As he ran through those massive tunnels of spectators, the roaring fans celebrated him just as fiercely, if not more so, than when he was out there breaking records.
And that deep, unbreakable connection between athlete and community is just beautifully captured in his post-race message. Starting in the local Basque language, he wrote, "Eskeri asko Zegama." Thank you, Zegama. He talked about the pure joy of just still being out there, running the trails, hearing the deafening roar of the fans, and seeing the familiar faces of the volunteers. Despite the injury, he said he really enjoyed running at a slightly different pace today. You see, it wasn't about the gold medal this time around. It was about honoring the mountain and the people. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating thought. We've watched an idea for a simple, quiet village picnic evolve into the ultimate test of human endurance. We've seen records drop by 40 minutes, new legends rise, and a community rally to save its home by inviting the world to climb its mountains. So, as we look to the future, with the trails getting faster and the crowds getting louder? What will it take to conquer the mountain in the next 25 years? And more importantly, what limits could you push past if you had an entire village cheering your name? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope you found the journey to Zegama as breathtaking as I did. Catch you next time.